Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Juan Carlos Brando, and for me, it's a pleasure to have all of you here joining us in this show with one of the attorneys in the law firm of Margaret W. Wong and Associates. The attorney Margaret W. Wong is today in the city of Atlanta, but she's very, very busy. But we have one of the best attorneys in the law firm, the attorney Kwesi Bediako, who is he started as a legal assistant. He became a paralegal, and then in the law firm, he became an attorney, and he is now one of the attorneys in the staff of Margaret W. Wong and Associates in the city of Cleveland and other 6 cities in the United States of America. So let's welcome the attorney Kwesi. Hello, attorney. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Juan. I am doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much. What country are you originally from?
Thank you, Juan. I am from Ghana, West Africa.
From Ghana.
Yes.
Okay, so I have met a lot of people from Nigeria this last few days, last few weeks, and it's interesting. I don't know if this happens in Ghana too, but in Nigeria, they were talking about those diamonds and the mining in that country in Africa, and they were saying that it's really bad because having diamonds could be a blessing, but it has become a curse for those countries. Does this happen in Ghana too, or is only a Nigerian thing?
Not really. Ghana doesn't have as much diamond as Nigeria and Congo and other countries. So luckily for us, it's not as bad as it is in African countries that have such precious metals.
Yeah. So since we're talking about people from Nigeria, I've seen so many people lately coming or talking to us in the law firm about immigration and about their needs. But I've heard that if a person is from Nigeria, one of the things that people can claim is the feminine genital mutilation. But that goes to cancellation of removal or to a kind of waiver. What is that? What does that mean regarding to immigration? Would you have to defend yourself?
Definitely. So that's a really good question. Commonly referred to as FGM in Africa, or female genital mutilation. These are usually really good asylum cases. So basically, there are certain tribes, certain parts of Africa where they believe when you have a girl child, you should physically cut certain parts of her reproductive system. Usually, it has to do with sexual organs. They cut certain parts of it in the belief that it tames the female child, but this is usually really abusive to the kid. Most of these victims of these FGM practices, they grow up to not have really stable marriages because they cut certain important parts of the sexual organ such that they're not really able to enjoy sexual activities. And because of that, if you refuse it, most of the time you get punished for it. You get brutally punished for it. And most young females have to flee. They have to flee the country, usually their villages, their countries, their cities, just to avoid being victims of these female genital mutilation thing, commonly referred to as FGM. We've had a few clients who've had that. It's really sad cases. Because no one generally wants to have their body parts cut off without their permission, and no one wants to be forced into pain that they will live with for the rest of their lives. So it goes down. Most victims of these are able to seek asylum in the U.S. Because if you're going to be forced into a FGM, you become what we call a PSG, or a particular social group, which is people who have been subjected to FGMs. And usually, if you meet all the other requirements, you should probably be able to get an asylum. You may be able to get cancellation of removal also if you qualify for it, but Basically, FGM, if you've been a victim of FGM, you may have an asylum case.
Thank you so much, Attorney Quasi. And yeah, that's true. We don't know what people are going through in the world, but the good thing is that we have attorneys like the Attorney Quasi or the Attorney Margaret W. Wong and all of the attorneys in the law firm that can help you out with your immigration needs. So if you have any question, please give us a call. The phone number is 216-279-3984, or please feel free to join us in our Facebook show today and send your question, and we will be happy to get an answer for you. Okay, this next question, the first question actually is, hello, gentlemen. I have a question. I am from Saudi Arabia. What business is good for coming to America legally?
Thank you, friend from Saudi Arabia. This is a good question, but it's a bit broad. So the business, every business could be good. There are different visas through. Basically, there are different investment visas that you could use if you want to set up a business in the U.S. It could be anything from a hotel, gas station, uh, any kind of business that you want to do. Generally, I would advise you stick to something that you will enjoy, stick to something that you understand, something that you can run well. There are different ways in which you can set up. You could get a what you call like an investor visa in the U.S. You could do the EB-5 investment visa that requires, as at now, an investment of about $850,000 plus. There are different ways, different businesses that you could use. I can't, as to saying which business is good for coming to America legally, I can't specifically pinpoint that this business is more profitable or this, because that's what we do is legal advice. All we can advise is there are different businesses. Just make sure whatever business you're investing in, it's able to provide jobs to people in America, and you meet the financial requirements, which is the minimum investment requirements in the U.S.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Quasi. Don't forget, if you need more information or you have more questions, please give us a call, 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. Hi, I filed for TPS, but I have a removal case pending. How can I stop it? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. How can you stop your removal case? Generally, you can't stop it. You have to wait. Once you have the TPS approved, you can ask the court to either put it on what you call a status docket. Basically, the court can put your removal proceedings on hold for as long as you have the TPS. So that way, you would have a peace of mind. You would know that you're not going to be deported. You're not going to be, detained. But while the TPS is pending, which is what we call TPS is basically what we call a temporary protected status. This you can apply for when a country such as, if let's say if you're from Nicaragua, Venezuela, uh, Haiti, any of those countries, and many more are designated as countries that deserve some kind of temporary protection. And as the name suggests, it's a TPS, a temporary protected status. So it's only temporarily. It doesn't give you a green card or anything, but it allows you to be here without fear of deportation. So in the meantime, wait, get your TPS approved, and then let the court know. They'll put your case on a status docket for as long as you have a TPS, a valid TPS.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney. Don't forget, the phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. Um, is it true that for certain countries we can send a letter to our family so they can come visit us even if we don't have documents?
So this is probably referring to the humanitarian parole thing, Form I-134, where you can have family come in, if they are from certain countries like Ukraine, they can come in, be here based on parole, be here with you temporarily, and then leave the country. So is it true? Yes, it is true. But you have to be able to sponsor them, which means you have to be able to show that you're legally able to work in the U.S. You're legally able to provide for them if they should come to the U.S. If you don't have any status, usually it's going to be difficult to prove this. But in the short form, yes, there are certain humanitarian paroles that allows people from very specific countries to be able to travel to the U.S., remain here temporarily, and then go back to their country.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting that, but I've heard that I think some people are confused between Guatemala, El Salvador, people from those countries that they think that they can just send a letter and this person in El Salvador, let's say, they can show the letter at the embassy and they will give them a kind of visa or something. So, is it convenient to send that letter?
So the letter really doesn't guarantee anything. You know, for most visas, let's say if you're trying to get a let's say a visitor's visa, even someone in the U.S. can send you a letter. So the letter doesn't guarantee anything. It's just something that you're showing that if the people or your family member that's seeking that humanitarian parole, if they do come to the U.S., you will be responsible for them. That's basically what the letter says. It doesn't show that it's not guaranteed that when they go, they're going to get that parole, they're going to get that visa, they're going to come in. It's not as simple and straightforward as it is.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, you know, you better need to find out what's going on there and what applies to your country. Um, Next question is: I have a hearing pending in California, but I want to change it to Atlanta. I did it to USCIS, but need to do it for the court. Do I need an attorney to do that?
Thank you. That's a really good question. So, what you're talking about is a motion to change venue. Okay, USCIS and the court are two separate agencies. For the courts, you would have to file a motion to change venue, unless you're really, really good at being knowing the law and uh, being able to write motions. You will need an attorney for that. Okay, it is good, always good to seek an attorney's advice on things like this because they will be able to, not they might, they will be able to advise you on it. Why should you seek to change the venue? There are, there are consequences, which is there are pros and cons of changing venue. For instance, if you just filed an asylum case and it's less than 150 days, if you change venue, you won't be able to get a work permit. Okay, so these are nuances that you want to know before you seek to change the venue on your case. You might want to talk to a lawyer. You can call our firm. You might definitely talk to a lawyer about this. You will be safer and you would have a better chance of being successful at changing the venues if you do use a lawyer.
Thank you so much, attorney. We have another interesting question right now, and it says, "Can I be deported as an undocumented if I have a pending T visa case?"
That's a really good question. And once again, it depends. Okay, it depends on the reason why. So let's say if you commit some really serious crime, okay, some serious felony or something. Yes, you could be picked up because you pose a severe risk, and then you could be deported while it is still pending. But generally, if you don't really commit any serious crime, you don't have any serious issues with law enforcement, generally you won't be a priority, which means you would not be picked up and deported while your T visa is pending. And the good news is T visa, which is trafficking, trafficking visa for people who have been victims of trafficking. Those cases are pretty fast. It takes about 2 to 3 years to get approved or to get a decision on the case. So it's unless you have some serious criminal stuff, really unlikely that you will be picked up. Just make sure you stay away from any kind of trouble. Make sure you don't get yourself into any kind of trouble. Then you won't be a priority and you won't be picked up.
Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, just to remind everybody that the office of the attorney Margaret W. Wong has 7 locations across the country in Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland, um, Columbus, Nashville, New York, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And the phone number is just one 216 279 3984. 216 279 3984. Today we're talking with the attorney Kwesi Bediako, who is one of the expert attorneys in the law firm, talking about immigration and regarding to all of the knowledge that you need to have fighting removal, fighting against deportation. So that's basically one of the things that people are concerned right now. Um, So this next case is I have a pending asylum. My son was murdered. He was 16, but he lived with mom. Can I apply for a U visa?
Okay, this is a good question. Also, can you apply for a U visa? It depends. Okay, it depends on the circumstances of the murder. And just to get it out there for those who don't know what a U visa is basically a visa for people who have been victims of crimes. You could be a direct victim, which is in this case, let's say the father himself got murdered. If you're murdered, obviously you can apply for a U visa. So let's use a more generic term. Let's say assault, then you're a direct victim. But in this case, with this question, this person is an indirect victim. His son got murdered. We would need more information. Was he murdered in the U.S.? Did it happen in the U.S.? One and two, when it happened, did you cooperate with law enforcement? Okay, how has this incident affected you? Basically, you have to be able to prove all these things to qualify for a U visa, especially as an indirect victim. Okay, it's usually more difficult as an indirect victim to prove some kind of harm, but these are cases that we have done. So, in short, yes, you may be able to apply for a U visa. We will need more information on it. Okay, we would need where it happened, how it happened. Where were you when it happened? Were you in the U.S.? Were you outside the U.S.? Were you present in the kid's life? We will need more details. We will need to see the police reports. We will need to see what happened, and then we can properly advise you on it. But short answer is yes. You can apply as an indirect victim if your son was murdered, but we will need to see more details, and then that way we can let you know how the likelihood of being successful on such a case.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Kwasi. Don't forget the phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. How long are taking the new asylum cases to have the interview? I've lived in the United States for 11 years and I have two kids born here.
Okay, so this question appears to be in two parts. I'll answer the first part. Asylum cases, the new ones, you're taking on average 6 to 8 years. This is assuming you've already filed it, let's say within the last 1 or 2 years. If you haven't already filed it, you've been here 11 years, you have two kids, you may qualify for what we call a cancellation of removal. Okay, but either ways, if you're not already in proceedings, usually you have to be in proceedings to qualify for cancellation. So if you're not already in proceedings, and assuming you found an asylum, expect to wait for another 6 to 8 years. Who knows? With all these, with all the influx of people coming across the border, and with all the people applying for asylums, it might start taking longer. But estimate 6 to 8 years. You'll get an interview. If you go to the interview and you're not successful with the USCIS, your case will be referred to court. In court, you could probably seek cancellation of removal if you do meet all the other requirements, which is, it appears you have two kids who are U.S. citizen born. If they're young, still under 21, and any of them have any medical conditions, you will probably have a good case for cancellation. But if you do file an asylum, let's say today or this month or this week, expect it to be another 6 to 8 years before you get an interview.
Thank you so much, Attorney Kwasi. The question would be, um, are they considering frivolous cases now? Like, are they separating those cases that they feel like are frivolous applications?
So it's usually difficult to be able to tell an application is frivolous on its surface, okay? Unless the person plainly states in it that it's a frivolous one. It's usually so off the top, they can't really separate, especially if you file it with the USCIS. At the point at which they can separate is, let's say you come to the border, okay, and then you say you want to come to the US and seek asylum because you're afraid to go back. At that point, an asylum officer uh, at the border, they will do what we call a credible fear interview. They will ask you some questions, they'll walk you through, and at the end of those questioning, they'll come to a conclusion whether you have credible fear or not. If you have credible fear, they will let you in, give you a chance to seek asylum. If you don't, they'll probably send you back to whatever country you are from. So at that point, they're able to sift through, probably separate, good cases from very likely frivolous cases. But once you're in the US and you file it with the USCIS, it's unlikely they'll be able to separate it until after the interview, which is when you go to the interview and they ask you, they get that chance to ask you questions about the application, questions about your home country, and the fear that you're afraid to go back. Then they'll be able to determine that this is a decent asylum case, or this is a likely a frivolous or a weak asylum case, and that's where they refer people to the immigration court for the judge to start proceedings. And if you lose there, then you get deported and all of that stuff.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Kwasi. Don't forget, phone number is 216-279-3984, 216-279-3984. My husband was deported to Mexico. I went down there to live with him until my son was sexually abused. I-130 has been approved and had an interview in Ciudad Juarez. Now they said everything is okay, it's good, but he needs to do a waiver. What waiver is it? How long more will it take? I moved back to the United States when my kid was abused.
Thank you for that question. So generally, when a person is deported back to their home country, the first waiver they need is an I-212, which is a waiver that permits them to seek re-entry into the U.S. So basically, the waiver is saying, I've been deported. I was in the U.S. I got sent back to my home country. Can you permit me to reapply and get a visa and come back to the U.S.? So that's the first one. Okay. He probably will need other waivers. We will need to see a file. We will need to see the case history. We don't have enough details to state specifically what kind of other waivers he would need. But number one, definitely will probably need a 212 waiver. Next, he will probably need a 601 waiver. I'm sure, depending on how he came in, if he came in illegally and then he got deported, he probably has accrued unlawful presence. He probably, if he has any criminal records, he probably will need a waiver for that. So off the top, he would need a 212 waiver, an I-212 waiver. Very likely need that, and then a 601 waiver. For how long it would take? It could take a couple years from filing. It could take some. We've gotten some approved. We have a really, really good colleague here, Mr. Zad, who's really, really good with the waivers. We have some that's been approved within 6 months. Some that's been pending for a year, 2 years, 3 years. How long? I would say estimate about anywhere from 1 year to, let's say, 4 years to have him back in the U.S. That's if you get the waivers done right, and then everything else is waived and granted. Then you should estimate about 1 to 4 years.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Kwesi. So 3 to 4 years?
But we'll say 1 to 4 years. One, if you get lucky and everything is processed faster, but it could take up to 4 years.
Are those processes able to be expedited?
Not necessarily. Sometimes you might get lucky and then it would be processed fast. You get lucky with that. But generally, you can't really expedite and speed it up to 6 months.
No. Okay. Thank you so much. I have a work permit for asylum filed for TPS. 2 weeks ago, I was charged with DUI, 4 days detained. Will this affect my TPS request? What about my asylum?
Okay, and thank you for that question. That's also a really good question. 2 weeks ago, you were charged with DUI, 4 days arrested. Will this affect your TPS? It depends. Okay, being charged with a crime is not a conviction of a crime. Generally, you have to be convicted for it to affect your TPS case, for it to affect your asylum. As at now, you've only been charged. You're probably going to need a lawyer. Get a good lawyer. Okay, preferably you want a lawyer that understands immigration, understands criminal law, so they can work with the court on getting, if you will be convicted or plead to something, it will be pled to something that would not affect your immigration status in the U.S. If you end up being convicted before your TPS is approved, when they run your fingerprints, they'll probably see it. They would ask for those documents. There are certain crimes that would affect your TPS, If it's only one DUI, it probably wouldn't. If you've had DUIs in the past, you have some other criminal stuff, then likely you might be in trouble. But if it's only one DUI, really really unlikely to affect your TPS. What about asylum? So generally, if one DUI should not affect your asylum. It should not be a reason why you won't get an asylum. However, remember, if you go to court, assuming your case is in court or it gets referred to court, you have to show good moral character. Okay, and having a DUI, one might not be that bad, but if you've had DUIs in the past, then there might be a pattern there which might affect you being able to prove good moral character. So, in short, it's unlikely to affect your TPS if it's only one. Uh, and as of now, you haven't been convicted yet, so you should be okay. Your asylum, you should also be okay on your asylum if it's your first and hopefully last DUI. Make sure you don't get into any more trouble. Make sure you don't get any more DUIs. Make sure you stay out of any trouble because it's important to be able to prove good moral character. Okay.
Yes, actually, yesterday here in Atlanta, there was a huge checkpoint in one of the cities that has a very high population or a very high Hispanic population, and they were doing that operation only to get people on DUI.
Right.
So many people from Latin America, and I would say mostly, yeah, Central American, South America, they think they can drive with no license, with no insurance, and even with 1 or 2 beers. So it's not the way that you need to do it. And also, you can drive from here to 1 block away from where you are. Then it could be half a mile, it could be a quarter of a mile. But if a police officer is on the way and you are driving uh, incorrectly, they are going to stop you. They're going to give you a ticket. They're going to get you arrested for no license, for driving under the influence. It's too many problems. So, do we need to do that, Attorney Kwasi?
No, no. Once again, every time, thank God. I don't think 20 years ago we had Uber and Lyft and stuff, but thank God we have those now. If you go out anywhere and you have to have some beers, it's okay to have your beers. Just don't drive when you're drunk. Get an Uber, have someone get a designated driver, someone who's not drunk, someone who's sober, have them drive you. Because trust me, the headaches that come with having DUIs in the US, it's something that you don't want to deal with. Okay, just when you go out, you think you're gonna have some beers, you're gonna drink a lot more. Just use an Uber, use a Lyft. Okay, that way $20, $30, they will get you to your destination. You won't get dinged for a DUI. You won't get dinged for driving without a license, and you wouldn't put your immigration case in jeopardy.
That's true. And the last question for today, Attorney Kwasi, is I entered to the United States 10 years ago, was turned back to Mexico, and entered 3 days later. I am from El Salvador, married to an U.S. citizen. Can she file for me?
So generally, I get this question a lot. Can she file for me? Can she file for you? Yes, she can file an I-130 for you. Okay, but when it comes to the green card, you would need one. You came in illegally. Okay, so you're gonna need some waiver to waive that illegal entry. Okay, and then two, we would have to see when you got turned away. When you came 10 years ago, you got turned away. Were you given any paperwork? We would have to see, maybe do a FOIA, but we would have to see whether you were just turned away or you were expeditiously removed. Okay, because all those things would affect the kind of waivers that you need and how we can approach your case. So, can she file for you? Yes, you can file an I-130 for you. But when it comes to getting the green card in the US, you will probably need some kind of waiver to waive the illegal entry. Hopefully, you don't have an expeditious removal. You don't have any, removal on your records. But you're very likely going to need that waiver to waive your legal entry. So she can file the I-130. When it comes to the citizenship part, I mean, the green card part, which is a 485, you probably will have to leave the US, go to your home country, and then get a visa to come back. And you will need a waiver or something for that.
Thank you so much, Attorney Kwasi. we are on the time to dismiss for today. So thank you, and hopefully gonna see you soon.
Thank you, Juan. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to learn from you and to see how you share your knowledge about all of the immigration concerns that people may have today. And for everybody that has joined us today, don't forget that you can call the phone number 216 279 3984, 216 279 3984. You can talk to the attorneys in the law firm of Margaret W. Wong Associates, and they will take good care of your case. So don't forget the phone number 216 279 3984. Thank you, Attorney Kwasi. See you next time.
Thank you, Juan. You take care.
Thank you.